There you go. So since last week, we really did the Chazarah and Tzadi Tetz, anticipating we would finish it up. And we didn't really get through much of Birya. And so I figured next week we'll do the Chazarah and Birya. I thought we would do some a little bit of Chazarah and Tzadi Tetz and a little bit even further backwards. And thought we would do it in the form of a tshuva of Rabbi Ovadia Yosef's. And about Teimat Goy or Teimat Nochri. So just to start out, just to kind of prep us for it, just to remind us of something, I wanted to reread Sari Chet Aleph in the Shulchan Aruch. So maybe people have their Shulchan Aruchs with them. Alice, you look like you're ready.
Okay. Sari Chet Aleph, okay, Shulchan Aruch. איסור שנתערב בהיתר מין בשאינו מינו, כגון חלב שנתערב בבשר, יתאמנו עובד כוכבים, in my גרסה, אם אומר שאין בו טעם חלב, או שאומר שיש בו טעם, אלא שהוא פגום מותר. So the forbidden thing which got mixed in, and it's מין בשאינו מינו, like חלב in the meat, so that Oved Kochavim, and non-Jew, probably is better translation, not translation, but better word. Will taste it, and if he says that there is no taste of chelev, or that it's pagum, made it worse, so it's allowed. And it's important that it's in the end that it will not improve the food. He cannot know that we rely on him. Nobody to taste it, so it's butter only in shishin. וכן אם הוא מין במינו same, כיוון דליקה למקם הטעמה, משארים בשישים, because we cannot discern it by taste if it's the same thing, so we estimate it by the shishim. And Rama.
Read the Rama, this is important.
ואין נוהגים עכשיו לסמוך על עובדי כוכבים, ומשארים על הכל בשישים. The Agur Betsuvat Maharam Padova.
Okay, we don't have to worry about who it is for the moment, but just what does he say?
Okay, good. But we don't do it today. We don't rely on Ovdei Kochavim or
exactly. And instead we measure everything by 60.
Yeah, we measure everything in 60.
All right, so this is the debate between the Mechaber and the Ramah, where the Mechaber really sees the taste of a non-Jew in Min B'She'eno Mino as the ideal, kind of, as long as you're Mesiach Lefi Tumo or whatever, right? He doesn't know that you're relying on him, right, is the way he puts it. I'm retranslating that as Mesiach Lefi Tumo. But the Ramah says, no, we don't do this anymore. We do everything on 60. And, the general flow of the opinion, even in the Sephardi world, follows the Ramah here. Right, that Rav Nachum mentioned this, that the Mechaber really kind of drops out, and almost everyone says we don't rely on Teimat Goy anymore. Okay? So that's going to be the background of this whole thing that we're going to deal with. Everybody with me so far? This is a well-known maybe fact, just to remind us though. So I'm also going to share screen, but I'm going to share this document, which I shared in the email. I'm also going to share it here, just in case people don't like reading on the shared screen. And then I'm going to share my screen. And we're going to take a look here at Rav Ovadia Yosef. Now, of course, Rav Ovadia Yosef, I should say a little bit, and you'll see this a little bit in the background. I'm sure people know this, right? He was former chief Sephardi rabbi of Israel, really interesting posek in many ways, at least I think, an encyclopedia as well. And we'll see that a little bit here, but also feels a lot of fidelity to the Shulchan Aruch, right? He really likes the Mechaber. He really kind of wants in some ways, a united Jewish world behind the Shulchan Aruch. As someone told me, I haven't seen this myself. He made some comment somewhere where the Ramah went and ruined the Shulchan Aruch by scribbling all over it, kind of idea here. But so that's the background. Let's read the case. Maybe I'll start out and okay. All right, this is in Yabia Omer, one of his collections of tshuvot in Yorei Deis Siman Yud. All right. Hine Maran b'Shulchan Aruch katav v'zal isur shnitarev beheter min b'she'eno mino kegon chelev shnitarev b'basar All right. Yitamenu akum, right? We just saw this. Okay. Imamar she'en bo tam chelev, o shomer sheyesh bo tam pagum, mutar. V'tzarich shloi dasam samchin alav, sham akum otomo misharin oto v'shishim. Right. That we just exactly what we saw. V'chein imhu min b'mino, deleka lemekamatama misharin v'shishim. וכתב על זה הרמה בהגה, ואינו הוגים עכשיו לסמוך על טימת עקום, ומשארין הכל בשישים. All right. That's everything we saw there. וכך כתב עוד הרמה בהגה, ובתורת חטאת בשם האגור. עיין שם. All right. וכייצא בו כתב בספר תשומה, שטוב לנו שלא לסמוך על כפלה גוי, שינסה אם יש טעם איסור בתבשיל היתר, אלא לשער בשישים. Right. So he's bringing, it's very rough about Yosef, he's going to bring all the opinions that agree with the Ramah here, right? ומרשל בים של שלמה כתב, ונראה שאם הוא מסיח לפי תומו, אפילו אם אינו כפלה, אלא סתם גוי, נאמן בין להחמיר בין להקל. ובכנסת וחי גבני סמכינן עליה אפילו העידנה, שאינו אלא גילוי מילתא בעלמא, right? But the Marshal says, who's Marshal, by the way, is a contemporary of the Shulchan Aruch, not a big fan of the Shulchan Aruch in many ways, the Yamshel, right? And he says, no, it seems that if you're Mesiach Lefitumo, then we can rely on a non-Jew, either Leachmir or Leakel, right? But and we can do it still today, but only, because what is this? You're only revealing truth. It's Gilui Milta. It's not testimony, right? We saw this as a good review. But if you aren't Mesiach Lefitumo, we don't rely on them, even on a kafela. All right. Vayan od b'knesset hagdola. So see also this source, right? Vehine gama pri chadash katav, right? Umash katav b'shulchan aruch she'im hamid gvina beor kivat kshera im yesh batam basar asura, right? He says the Shulchan Aruch wrote that if you what's the word when you make cheese hard? Emulsified cheese? What's the when you add rennet to cheese? Whatever that process is. Alice, what's the word? Or Isaac or whatever.
I don't know.
Good. When we get to cheese, we'll do more of it maybe. Right in the stomach lining of a cow, it's kshera. When im yesh batam basar, but if yesh tas, as long as there's no tam basar, im yesh batam basar asura. V'hamachaber azilatame lekaman de'ina nami samchina atimat akum. Right. So you can see that the Mechaber is continuing his idea that we still can rely on somebody to taste it. Aval lo haginan b'ha kedivrei Mechaber el kedivrei haga sham dilalam sharinan b'shishim. He says, but we do not rely on the Mechaber here. We don't follow the Mechaber here, but rather like the Hagav, the Ramah, that we always measure in 60. Okay. So v'cha katuv b'shulchan gavoa. And he's bringing Sephardi sources now. This is like proof, right? Gamaziv Chet Tzedek katav al dat Raman iskar el she'af anum b'minatinu ein somchim al timat kefela u'miyamenu lo shamanu shehoruken ela be'inyan dafka shishim. Right? That in our lands, in our Sephardi lands, we don't rely on the taste of a kefela of a non-Jew, right? And we never heard anybody teach that you could do this, but rather we need shishim. All right. V'cha katuv v'ken katav od. In another place, he also writes this. V'chein katav b'chafa chayim. Right, he's going to bring all the Sephardi. Ayin sham. Okay, that's where I'm going to stop and have somebody else pick up. So, Jacob, take it away. Let me bring it up here. There you go.
Umikol nira laniat dati she'im nitrav iser beheter ufneged iser yesh limsal pi mishim. The Easter Kahus, the Kurov Levadash in the top shield Tom Easter Klal, Vish have the Maruba Bar, Yholomless, Mofbachai, Gravnal Timat Goy, but often shit, there's just something I love. Afal Pisho, you damn, even Agay Israel. Vim Yamers in Shum Tom Shield. Ha'isar yicholim l'smoch amaran kab banu horotab u'hater hatav seal. Vafilu im ein hefsid meruba b'davar im yesh is a siruf le'akel yicholim l'smoch le'akel aide timat goy.
Good. Now explain.
And so Avadia Yosef is saying if it's a case where Isser is mixed into heter. And I guess you know it's at least 150.
I think he's giving an example. Like, it's a pretty good ratio, right, between the two of them, right?
I'm not sure what kachus is.
Oh, is not fatty or like something that's not going to spread its flavor very much.
Oh, okay, that makes
a lean substance. So
okay, got it. That makes a lot of sense. How those things. So, and you're almost certain that there's no flavor of the Isser at all in what you've cooked, and there would be a big loss. You can rely on someone non-Jewish tasting it. And even if
it often is in a manner that he doesn't know that we're relying on him, right?
So. Okay, got it. Even if he does know Jewish law to some extent.
Exactly, which might be, by the way, I was thinking about this, like the non-Jewish cook in the kosher kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Who's like probably gets basar, Isser tarovot and but nonetheless, if you just like, hey, taste this for me, tell me what it tastes like, you can rely on that person. So,
and if he says there's no taste of this, or you're able to rely on a teacher that received his proof. And
good. I just want to like Yacholim lismoch al Maran, on our master, which is Yosef Karo.
Yeah.
Horotav, that we accepted his instructions. Ulat tirat tafshil, right? To permit this tafshil, right? All right. That's if there's hefsed merubah, and even if there isn't, right? Keep going.
Yeah, if there isn't, if there's some like was zero the concept of like combining different laws.
Exactly. Yes.
So if there's some reason like you feel you can combine laws to make it lenient, you're able to rely on that leniency on the like tasting of someone not Jewish.
Exactly. So good. Now he's going to go off on a kind of tangent to prove he can pull this off. So Alice, you want to take I'll help you out here because this is like a little bit out of left field.
Okay.
We're at Zecher LaDavar.
Right. וזכר לדבר, מה שכתב מרן החידה, בשו"ת חיים שאל חלק ב', סימן ט"ו, וזה לשונו. והן אמת שכבר כתבנו במקומות אחרים,
skip where it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
דכי פליגי רבנן בתראי על מרן ז"ל בדיני ברכות, דמרן סבירה לברך ואחרונים חולקים, וסבירה להם שלא לברך. העיקר שיש לחוש לדברי האחרונים שלא לברך. Okay. So, and point above is correct because we wrote on many places that when the rabbi, the achronim, the late rabbis are arguing with Yosef Karo, with the Mechaber, in the regarding the issue of brachot, in a case where the Mechaber thinks that we should bless and the achronim disagree and think that we shouldn't bless. So we should so we should be what's the English word, like
here it's really we should
concerned take right about the words of the achronim, or basically we should follow the achronim, right? וכן קיבלתי מרבותיי מכל מקום מי שמברך כדעת מרן אין מוחין בידו, כיוון שקיבלנו הוראות ממרן. So, and that's the way that's how I received it from my teachers, that anyway, the one who does the blessing according to the opinion of the Mechaber, so we don't protest against him, like we let him do it because that's the instruction which we received from him.
This is all his like point of I have proof that there are other times when everyone argues on Shulchan Aruch, yeah, we follow everybody else, but we can still sometimes allow people to rely on the mechaber, right? This is like a zecher ledavar, he calls this, right, earlier, right? He said zecher ledavar. Okay. So, but, good. We'll do a little bit more.
Okay, והכי נמי בעיר אלג'יר בעומדם יעמודו כדעת רבן הריבש. So the same in the year Algier, when בעומדם יעמודו כדעת רבם. So it's they are standing probably. No, I'm not sure.
I assume it means
I know
that
what
they're
the case is.
following of the Rivash.
So it's like okay,
Yeah.
got it. So it doesn't refer to a specific case. Okay, Ayin Sham.
It's kind of nice. So he has some sense of like, oh, in Algeria, this is they have a similar thing. So okay.
וכל שכן.
Yeah, וכל שכן.
No, וכך. Is it וכל שכן כאן שאין האחרונים חולקים על וכל שכן. כאן שאין האחרונים חולקים על מרן מצד הדין, אלא שאמרו שלא נהגו כן, שבוודאי שהעושה כדעת מרן במקום הפסד מרובה, או במקום שיש עוד סניף להתיר, יש לו על מה שיסמוך. So, the same here that
all the more so. All the more so.
All the more so. Okay, all the more so. It's very in the case where there are no achronim who disagree with Maran regarding the view, the judgment.
The law.
The way I understand it, the law, right? It's not the minhag. It's the Isser Veheter issue, like the law. I don't know. Is it? But they just said that we do not follow this practice, so certainly the one who follows mechaber in the case of big loss, or there is another reason to be matir, so he has something to rely on, someone to rely on.
Exactly, right? So he's making a claim. It's not so clear, but he says "Eino agin ken," right? The Rama writes, that's like, it's a practice, but it's not the deen, right? At the end of the day. Although there are some places, right? I was remembering in Sadi Tet, in we saw the questions of Chaticha Naset Nevela, when the Rama there says "Ve'eno agin ken ki kaimalan b'chol Yisrael Chaticha Naset Nevela," right? I don't think that's a minhag. I think he actually thinks the deen is that way. So I don't know if we could rely that when the Rama says "Eno agin," it means, I don't think the deen is as such, but you will. But in fact, actually, we have other cases where the Rama says "V'yesh machmirim," for instance, right? Where the Rama, and then we'll say, but in Hefsed Merubeh or Vikar Hadin and so forth. But here it doesn't sound like it. But the Rav Ovadia Yosef is reading this as a minhag and not as a not as Lefi Hadin. So okay, good. That's everyone good where we are so far. It's like everyone agrees you don't rely on the Shulchan, you don't follow Shulchan Aruch, you follow the Rama here, except right. It's like if there's like a good reason, I just want to review it, right? If you're like, you drop something in and it's a pretty good ratio, and you're like, I'm pretty sure you can't taste it. Then I'll like get an anju, and this is actually gets back to like, how do you measure some of this? It's very hard to measure. So like, you can't measure it, let's say, but you can find an anju to taste it. Then you can rely on it if there's a big loss, or if there's not a big loss, if you can find some other makil part to this, that we can maybe do this. Okay. Let's see. Isaac, are you readable right now?
Yes.
Good.
Okay. Okay. ולכתחילה נמי מורינן הכי, שהתורה חסה על ממונן של ישראל, והנה באיסור דרבנן כגון עוף בחלב, או בנתערבה בתבשיל חתיכת בשר שלא נמלחה, דקיימה לן דם שבישלו דרבנן, אין אנו צריכים לטמיעת גוי. ובפרט למען דם על דם ובשר חשיב מין במינו, שטעם דם האיברים שווה לטעם האיברים. כיוון דקיימה לן איסור של דבריהם שנפל לתוך היתר, ואין בהיתר כדי לבטלו, מרבה עליו ומבטלו, וכתבו הפכוי חדש האחרונים, דהיינו אפילו באיסור לרבנן שיש לו עיקר מן התורה.
Good.
Okay.
Maybe do Yeah, one more sentence and then go back.
Okay. וכן פסק להלכה ולמעשה שו"ת באר מים חיים, military, whatever.
Yeah, great.
Okay. Okay. So where was I? Okay. Okay. And l'chatchila, we teach the same thing.
Yeah, right. That you can rely on in certain cases on timat goy, right? Like you can.
Yes.
It's not like halacha ve'morin ken. It's like you can tell people this, right?
Yes. Because the Torah is concerned about like not wasting our money,
Exactly.
or like causing us financial loss. And if you have any sort of rabbanon, for example, like poultry and milk, or if you have something mixed in with a piece of meat that hasn't been salted properly, because we teach that
there's an idea that if you cooked meat with the blood, if you haven't salted it, is only a derabanan isur actually, right?
Okay.
Yeah, the blood itself, once you draw out the blood, that's asur deraita, right? Lo tochal adam. But the blood that's still in the meat, when it gets cooked in, that's just a derabanan isur at that point. So just derabanan. It's a derabanan isur. I don't want to use the word just, but so okay.
Okay, gotcha. So we don't need te'imat goy, and specifically for one who says blood and meat is considered mino, because the taste of like blood of like limbs, in other words, meat, is the same as like the taste of the limbs themselves, i.e. meat.
It's all on the side there because then you couldn't taste it, maybe it doesn't work. But anyway, keep going.
Yeah, since we learn any sort of rabbanon that falls into heter, and there's not enough heter to make it mevatel, if it's then you can actually still say it's batal b'rov.
Oh, no, you can marbet alav and mevatlo. You can increase, but this is what we do.
Oh, okay, yeah. Right. You can add more to make it batel. And the Pri Chadash and the Aharonim says that this is the case even if you have any sort of rabbanon that like its baseline thing is any sort of oraita.
Exactly. Remember the Rashba differentiated those cases, but here he's saying even if it has an ikar deraita, I think the Rashba said then again you can be marbe alav, right? Then you can be marbe alav to levat to do bitul on it. So
well, to be technical, wasn't it like can't lechatchila be marbe alav?
Oh, good. That's the difference between yeah, we had the two different terms. You can be Mosif alav, right? And you can't mevatel lechatchila, which is different, right? Which would be bitul lechatchila would be like I have this piece of blood or some blood and I want to like bitul it, so I just like throw a bunch of stuff on it. Versus, or let's say actually like let's say chicken and so I have like a piece of chicken. I really want some chicken in my milchik soup, and I like throw a bunch of milchik soup on top of it. I can't do that lechatchila. But if I drop the chicken in the soup, right, accidentally, right, let's say accidentally for the moment, then I can increase the soup on it, and because it's only a derabanan. Although we saw some people that maybe thought that of and chalav maybe not, but let's say for the moment he's saying that you can do that. So. But his whole point here is that you could be mevatel it. You don't even need a non-Jew to taste it, right? At this point, right? So we can agree on that. All right, Isaac, you want to keep going a little bit?
Yeah, and then the next line was just like the Be'er Mayim Chaim agrees.
Yeah. This is I wanted one of the reasons that I like about this. I know people have spent time with Rav Ovadia Yosef's Tshuvot. I don't know if you guys have or not, right? He does this. He's an encyclopedia. He knows every source and he brings it. He just dumps it on you. Like here are all the sources that think this way. Here are all the sources that think that way. You know, so he likes to play this game. Not a game, but it's a really kind of impressive. Like here are all the opinions. Go check them out. So, okay, but keep going a little bit, Isaac, if you don't mind.
Okay. ולכן גם אנו מורים ובאים להתיר על ידי ביטול בשישים. אבל באיסור תורה מין בשאינו מינו, כל שקרוב, כל שקרוב לוודאי שאין שם טעם איסור, יש לסמוך על טעימת גוי, שאינו יודע שסומכים עליו ולהתיר, כי התורה חסה ארממונם של ישראל, ומעיקר הדין לכל הדעות יש לסמוך על כפלה הרמאה, אלא שלא נהגו לסמוך על טעימת כפלה
בזמן הזה.
או בזמן הזה. ובכתב הגר"א,
ובחי גבנה.
ובחי גבנה שיש הפסד מרובה בדבר, כדאי הוא מרן שקיבלנו הורותיו לסמוך עליו להקל על ידי טעימת גוי. Okay. And that's what we teach, and we make things matir or make things mutar with batal b'shishin. But if you have a deraisa of min b'she'ino mino, and you're pretty sure it's not going to have the taste of the Isor, you can rely on a goy to taste it, who doesn't know that you're relying on him, and to make it mutar on the basis of whatever he says, because again, like, the Torah doesn't want you to waste money, and the Ikar Hadin, like the like baseline ruling, according to all opinions, is that you can rely on a kafela arma'ah. I mean, that's not exactly, I mean, based on what we were talking about with the Ramah, maybe when he says no hagim, like, he doesn't really mean minhag, he means deen. But they didn't do this. Well, we don't do this now. And if there's like a hefsed meruba,
I'd say, but if there's a hefsed meruba, but in similar cases, if there is a hefsed meruba, right?
Yeah. We can like rely on the Shulchan Aruch to rely in order to be makil on the like testimony of a goy or whatever a goy says.
Good. Let me just summarize where he is so far, because now he's going to bring the two together in a second here, right? So he says, one, even though everyone agrees that we don't follow the Shulchan Aruch and rely on non-Jewish tasting today, he says, if there's a case where it's deoraita asur, and it falls like a deoraita isur that falls into your, soup, let's say, and you think that it's probably batel. It seems you're like karov levadai. You're like almost positive it's batel, but you want to be 100% sure, right? You can then, mesiach lefitumo to a non-Jew. You can talk to a non-Jew, not let him know what's going on, and have him taste this, have him, her, them, right? Taste the soup, and then rely on their testimony, right? Because mikaradin, that's right. And second thing, just a reminder that things which are asur de rabbanan, that get mixed in, tarovot visrei de rabbanan, and it's not batel, you're allowed to add to the mixture in order to mevatel it, right? Those are the two factors he's got going here at this point in his tshuva. Jacob, I want you, everyone with me on that? So,
yeah.
Jacob, take over. Ulavcha de milta.
Uravcha de milta acher she'emer hagoy she'ein b'tavshil shum tamsel isor yosifu od b'tavshil ad kidei shishim keneged ha'isor. And
I'd say to expand the matter, to go further with it,
Yeah.
something like that, to make it really good and kosher. Let's
Yeah. Yeah, after you're told by someone not Jewish that you don't have the tom of Isser in it, you should still add to like fit the policy requirement of 1 in 60.
Exactly. So like, get yourself, you're at 1 in 50. I mean, it's perfectly put it. Like, get yourself, you're at 1 in 50. The you're pretty sure the taste isn't there. You have non-Jew taste it. It's an Isur deraita, and then you can add to it, right? Then add to it. Get it to 60. So why? He's gonna keep going here.
The Apal Pi Shahaya Isur Shel Torah, Kivan Shagoy Omer In Sham Tam Shel Isur, Lo Adif Me Isur Shel Ram Shemutar Leharbot Alav Levatlo. So even though like this was a case of an Isser of the Torah, since you were told by someone not Jewish that there isn't the flavor of Isser, it's not, I guess, more stringent than an Isser of the Rabbanan that would make it permissible for him to add onto it to Mevatel it.
Yes, that's his huge step right here, right?
Yeah.
It's like we don't rely on this anymore. But if you're pretty sure the taste isn't there, and a non-Jew tastes it, it lowers it, and it says the taste isn't there. It lowers it to at least a Derabanan, if not lower, right? And so therefore now you can be Mivatel Isur, and you can just add to it. So it's a pretty clever. I don't know if you guys feel the same way. I was like, that's a pretty clever thinking about all of this, and really combining Siman Tzadi Chet and Tzadi Tet at this point. So okay, go a little bit more. So
Varei midivrei Trumat Hadeshen Muchach Shelo Amru She'in Vatlin Iser L'Chatchila Ela B'Vadai Iser Aval Safek Iser Mutar. And there's this from Trumat Hadeshen that we like strengthen this idea that we don't say that we don't mevatel an Iser L'Chatchila, rather when it's that's only when it's certainly an Isser that we don't mevatel l'chatchila. But if it's a suffix of whether it's an Isser, we can work to mevatel it l'chatchila.
Exactly, and I was going to give you some sources that are going to support him with this a little bit more. Go a little bit more.
Okay. Kach katav bishmo be
HaKnesset HaGedolah. So
HaKnesset HaGedolah Ayin Sham Gam b'Sefer Aruch HaShulchan Hochiach v'Mishor midivrei HaRambam shesafik isor shenitarav mutar levatlo l'chatchila v'afilu kishenitarav min b'she'eno mino sheyesh bo mishum tam ke'ikar d'oraita mutar levatlo deha isor levatel isor l'chatchila midoraita hurach kisha mit Marav Isur Beheter in Zra Bisla Delfinan Min a Hachi.
Aval, can you go a little bit more?
Avalosif al Hatarova Lefloy Alma Eno Isur Alameda Rabbanan. Se'ilu Gam Behut Safal Turavot Asur Me Had
Torah. Yeah.
Haya Lanu Isur Tosef al Hatarova Gam Isur Rabbanan.
Good. We're in the middle, but I'll stop you there just because there's a long chunk so far, and maybe, and then we'll keep going.
Yeah. So thus, like the Knesset Hagdolah writes regarding the idea of mevateling an Isser l'chatchila, where you can't do it when it's Vada Isser, but Safek Isser you can.
Yep.
Also in Aruch HaShulchan, it strengthens. I'm not sure what Mishor.
I think he proves like straightly. It's a direct proof from the Rambam.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. From Lords of Rambam, that Safek Isser that was mixed with that someone mixed mutar to vata l'chatchila, and even if you're mixing mean just enemy no, where there would be like an aspect of Tom Ikar there, that would be Deraita, it's permissible to mevatel it, that since this Isser to mevatel it is an Isser l'chatchila from the Torah only when mixing Isser into Heter, like Zera Shela that we learn from it like this.
But let me stop you there. I want to like add an explanation here, just because I've read this times now. Right? He's saying the following, right, from the Rambam. This is what the Aruch HaShulchan proves. He says, wait a second. You can, if you have a Safek Deoraita, right, you can be Mevatel it. Why? right? The isur on being levatel isur, the isur on being levatel isur, right? Lechatchila, that's made d'oraita, is only the case when you are mixing it in yourself, like the zroa b'sheila. That's when you put the isur in with the heter and cook them, right? In order to be mevatel it, right? Just remember we made the distinction of like when you start with an isur and you're like potentially mix it in to be mevatel it versus it fell in and you add to it, right? He says d'oraita, the only thing you're not allowed to do, according to the Aruch HaShulchan, is to throw in the isur intentionally to try and be mevatel it. But if it fell in and you're mosif to mevatel it, that's only a derabanan isur on a d'oraita prohibit. On a d'oraita, if you have a d'oraita isur that fell into your soup, to mosif on it is only a derabanan isur, right? That's his argument here. He makes a split between those two. Okay. So like just to say it again, because I think this is confusing. If you have an isur d'oraita that got mixed into something, right, to add to it to be mevatel it is asur, but it's only asur d'Rabbanan, as opposed to putting it in there intentionally in the first place to be mevatel it into 1 and 60. That's asur d'oraita, right? And what's proof from that, right? And because we learned that from what do we learn about me'arev isur beheter? That we learn it from zroa b'sheila. That's a case where you intentionally put the zroa b'sheila, cooked it in with the other meat, right? And we're intentionally mevatel, all right. And that's the exception, of course, right? But to add to it as derabanan, why is it derabanan? Because if she'ilu gambel safal terovet asur me'atorah, if that had been a Torah law prohibition, let me take over for 1 second here, if that's okay, because it's a confusing section. Then, if adding to an isur that accidentally fell into a heter would be to mevatel it, would be a d'oraita level, even if the isur was a derabanan, we wouldn't be allowed to do it, right? Because it's asur d'oraita to do such a thing. Right? So we wouldn't allow that in the first place, right? And he says, "Umatam chilku be'isur derabanan bein le'arvo mamash levein le'osif al terovet levad lo b'shishim." So why did they make a distinction with an isur derabanan, whether to intentionally like lechatchila mix it in, and which is asur, and to add to it to be mevatel it, which is permitted? Rather, it must be that's only a derabanan isur. To add to get yourself to 60 when you started with something less than 60, right? Hilchach b'safek isur yesh letir, and therefore, if it's a safek isur, that's a safek derabanan, so we should permit that. Okay, that's his whole argument behind why a safek isur you can add to it lechatchila. Is because it's the adding is only an isur derabanan, and an isur derabanan safek derabanan le'akel. Okay, that's all it's got some complicated steps going on there, right? But he gets this from the Aruch HaShulchan. So this is not him, this is all the Aruch HaShulchan, I think. So, but all right, good. Jacob, do you want to read a little bit more before we
Sure.
Starting there, Gambashut Sefer Yoshua.
Yeah. So Gambe Sud Sefer Yoshua Ktav B'Shem Asaf Shmitar Levatel Safek Isur Torah the Kolskin Imrov Hapostim Matirin Legamri Elis Nogim Lahachme Damri Nanbe Vikai Gavna Safek Durabanan Lakua. So also in the Shuvot of Sefer Yoshua, he writes in the name of the Saf that it's permissible to mevatel a safek isur from the Torah, more so, or
I think it's mutar levatel safek isur Torah, that to be mevatel an isur Torah that safek is permissible.
Yes, the closer can it even more so if most of the posting permit it completely, but we have the custom to be stringent, as we say, like in this case that safek or banan is we're lenient.
Great, yeah. So
that's kind of like, because we're establishing safek durabanan l'kula, that means safek isur Torah, where our custom is to be machmir. Is that what this idea is?
Well, even though there is a custom to be machmir, we actually can be makel about it,
Yeah.
So, but okay, good. So maybe I'll how much more. Let me take over for a little bit if that's okay for people. And because I know, by the way, as I say this every time, but I really just want to express my appreciation of like I give you guys sometimes sources, some sources we have seen, but some sources we haven't seen, and so this is in order to kind of solidify stuff. But you guys are all brave people who are just like, I'll read something I've never read before. So all right, he says Va'ayin b'mashe katavti. He says, so see what I wrote in this other place. I didn't look there yet, but Prima Gadim, Uvashut Ov Mishpat, Uvashut Hart Savi, Ayin Sham. Right? This is him again. He's going to list all the other places that deal with this. Okay. V'chol Shechen, Benidon Didan. In our case, all the more our case, Shivadai, Shilachar Shamar Hagoy, She'ain Sham Tam Isur. That for sure, that after the non-Jew says there's no flavor of Isur, Mutar Lo Sifavat Lo Shishim, then you can for sure add to it to get yourself to 60. That's just to like keep you away from the Easter. It's just like it's an added bonus at that point. Let's put it that way, right? And also when there's some reason to be makil, right? Some small ways on afilu shu Isur Torah. Even if it's an Isur Torah, you can rely, or you should maybe even rely on a non-Jew tasting it. Kevan shikibalnu horaot maran, because we accepted the teachings of the Shulchan Aruch, who he himself was mekel according to by a non-Jew tasting. V'chein matzati lagon Rav Yosef Yedid Av Beitin V'Yerushalayim B'shut She'arit Yosef Chalek Aleph Shekatav. Right, and so this guy said it. If nidon dinam yatimenu, in our case, nidon dindan yatimenu lekfela. Right, ve'im yomar she'ein tam isur yoshif alav v'yavat lenu b'shishim. Then you should add. Then and so the non-Jew says, I don't taste it. Then you can add to it, get to shishim. Sharei minadim kol yisir shiniterev beheter yesh lehatir al yedei timat kefela arma. Because from the strict law, right, the taste is enough. All right, kamosh shekatav maran beyorei dea verama hu shekatav shelo nagu achshav lismoch al timat akum. Right, it's the Ramah. It's only Ramah who says we don't rely on a non-Jew tasting. Ve'im ken, and if so, kevan demidina bechol tarovet isur samchinu atimat goy. Right. Since from the strict law, for every Isur, we can rely on a non-Jew tasting it. All the more so if you add to it afterwards to make sure that not only did the non-Jew not taste it, but we get ourselves to 60, right? Because there's lots of branches to be makil, lots of ways to be makil on this, right? A lot of paths, a halachic path to be makil, all right? And so learn from or judge from this to our case. That if there's some other way to be makel, some other reason to be makel, you can rely on a non-Jew tasting it. Even in a Torah level, min b'she'eno mino isur. And if there's a big loss, and if there's a big loss, you don't need another leniency to come in there. You can rely on the non-Jew tasting it, period. All right, even Isur Torah. Israel is repeating himself again. The Torah, right, cares about the money of the Jewish people, right? Ve'anu kibalnu horat moran. And again, just in case you forgot, we accepted the teaching of the Shulchan Aruch. V'chein yesh lochiach mi dat hashach and so forth, right? Ve'afat tvot shor. He's got some other cases where he said even they would agree, right? Van b'shuva who seem to not agree, right? And to this other shuva, that's it. Ayen Shan, he's done. So just to take away, I just want to give his nice thing here. He says again, this is Rav Yosef. I don't know if all Ashkenazi poskim would say that, if Ashkenazi poskim would say this, but he's like, number one, we rely on the Shulchan Aruch. Number two, right? So therefore, if there is a major loss, you can rely on a non-Jew tasting it. If there's not a major loss, and there's some other way to be makil, right? You can still rely on the non-Jew. And what you can do is you're pretty sure that there is no flavor. You can give it to a non-Jew to taste, even if it's an Isur Deraita. If that non-Jew says there's no taste of the Isur, then let's make ourselves feel really good. Then you're permitted to add to it to get yourself to 60, and then everything's good. So it's like I think just as I said, I don't know how Ashkenazi poskim respond to this, but I think there is a pretty powerful thing here of if somebody calls you up and they're like, oh my gosh, I dropped Isur into heter. I'm pretty sure it was very little. I'm pretty sure it doesn't taste like anything. and but I just can't measure it. I don't know how much it was exactly. I don't know that it was actually 60. You could say, hey, is there a non-Jew there? Yes. All right, have the non-Jew taste it. Right. If you're pretty sure it's not enough to taste, have a non-Jew taste it. Or, is your neighbor non-Jewish? Is any, right? And they'll taste it, doesn't taste it. And like, let's make ourselves feel really good. Now add some more to it just to make sure it's batel, right? And end of story. So, okay. That's what I've got. I'm going to stop my screen share. Any questions on that? Any,
yeah, I just wonder. I'm just curious. Is it also partially, of course, like it's Avadia Yosef and this is Mechaber, but is it also partially that Mechaber can be like more the Israel, he's posking for the community, and it's still not. While Rama is really much more connected to Galut and
yeah, so the Rav Avadia Yosef really does, from what I understand from the stuff I've read of him, he has a vision of everybody returning to Israel and Israel being a place that's like actually governed by a unified halacha, right? That we all agree, main based on Shulchan Aruch. And by the way, Jacob, I see your face on that. In his maybe I didn't. In his view too, it's actually kind of an interesting, like, the Ramaz and not Ramaz, the Rav Avadia Yosef is not about like halacha should be this like strict thing that's very hard to do, and only the inside should do it. He actually has this kind of very expansive view of it in general, of like, we need to make halacha accessible to everybody. He really does feel that way, and I think that plays in here too a little bit of like, he doesn't want to be going around telling everybody asur 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 asur. Right. That's something that he feels very strongly about. He's like, we want halacha to be an open system that people can abide by. And that all Jews, he really has this view of all Jews in Eretz Yisrael abide by this same halacha, and therefore that halacha has to have a lot of leniency in it. And there are places where he's more lenient than Shulchan Aruch, actually, in a lot of his tshuvot. The one thing he very much is adamant, though, and you're seeing this play out here, I've seen him say this, is he's very nervous of anybody who's ever stricter than the Shulchan Aruch, right? That's where he gets nervous. He's like, we can't be more strict than the Mechaber. And this is the case, right? The Mechaber says a non-Jew can taste it. So, it's like, he's nervous about being stricter. Alice, did I lose you? Are you?
No, I'm there.
Are you there? Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is I'm thinking of something that a friend of mine taught me, that the idea of, I don't, there's citation needed, but he told me that the idea of having Hashkama Minyan on Shabbos comes from Sephardi rabbis who recognized that people in their communities were going to work on Shabbos. So rather than being punitive, they made it, they could at least get to davening.
Yeah, in French North Africa, the person who's done the really good work on this that I know is Tzvi Zohar, who's done a lot of work on Sephardi Psak Halacha, right? The Sephardim are dealing with, we always talk about like, how did modernity hit Ashkenaz and, how that worked. It hit Sfarad too, right? And when it hits Sfarad, it's like you have these interesting shuvot that show up in like from North African communities where they're like, I don't know if that's why they started Hashkama Minyans, although it makes sense to me, but they do talk about like, we have these people who come to shul on Shabbos morning and then go to work, or they go to the movies, or whatever it is they do. Can we count them in a minyan, right? Because we do have a sense of people who are mechalal Shabbat befarhes yarkei goy, right? And I can't remember who writes this tshuva. He says they can't be like a goy. They're showing up for Shabbos davening. Like, it doesn't make any sense, These people are full on Jews. You can count them in a minyan. You should treat them nicely. You should, it's like a real. So yeah, you do have some Sephardi Psak Halacha that goes that way of like, how do we deal with modernity of like giving Jews opportunities to still be from Jews, even when they're not, always from, yeah. And so I can imagine that Hashkama Minyan, I don't know if that's true, but I can imagine Hashkama Minyan being that. I love Hashkama Minyanim, but not because I'm going to work afterwards, but because I just actually think it's too late in the day by the time we're done davening on Shabbos. And I think
I'd ideally love it, but I'm a gabbai for a shul that we start late.
Fair enough. So
Rav Meisas has a lot of stuff on this, and he also permits like riding a streetcar.
Yeah,
and he also has a really interesting opinion on Reshut Harabim.
Yes.
Which he
Yes.
basically rules that like Reshut Harabim no longer exists.
Who
Because,
is
like,
that? I overheard the name.
Yosef Mesas or Meshash.
Mashash, Rav Mashash. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've never been able to find like a copy of his tissue vote.
I did.
Yeah, he's got several. Orva Shemesh. He's got a few really big collections.
Like, I mean, like, I've never been able to like find a copy to purchase.
Okay, on Hebrew books there are.
But they are in Hebrew books. Yes, that's the thing.
Okay.
Yeah, they are in Hebrew books. Rav Mesas, by the way, actually didn't love Rav Ovadia Yosef, from what I understand, because he felt that Rav Ovadia Yosef was trying to kind of like create one unified Sephardi halacha. And Rav Mesas was like, wait a second, we have Moroccan traditions that don't match up with your Baghdadi or, whatever other traditions you're trying to impose upon us. And he also, I think, thought that Rav Ovadia Yosef was, in some cases, was not a good posek. And so he actually has a lot of issues with Rav Ovadia Yosef and his Psak halacha. But he also incredibly creative thinker about so many things. I highly recommend him, reading him. Isaac, thank you for bringing him up. It's good. All right, I'm gonna end there. Isaac.
Can I make a request that is not directly related to this Chazarah exactly? But
let me